Welcome to my review. My name is Aaron Fisher, and on this channel, you're going to find me reviewing lots of movies and TV shows. And I wanted to get my first video out there as quickly as possible. I'm not done with my channel, as you can probably see, but that'll change over time. But I wanted to get my first episode out. What I'm going to be focused on first is a TV show called Dexter. And as I go through this program, I'm going to be reviewing the episodes individually. So we're going to start with season 1. It was just announced earlier this week that they will be bringing Dexter back for a 10-episode run on Showtime in 2021. So I watched this show when it was originally out. In fact, it was the first show that got me to binge watch anything. I remember my wife and I, it ended up being 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're like, man, we need to get up in a little bit. So we have to go to bed. And this was the program that kind of pulled us in. Never saw a program that would drag me into it the way that this program did. With the announcement of it coming back, I figured it's a great time to revisit the show. And for people who haven't seen it, they'll be able to come to my channel, get a review on each of the episodes, and they can determine whether they want to watch this or not and get ready for the new season. With the way the show ended, I'm happy to hear that they're coming back with 10 seasons to give it a proper send-off, because there were a lot of issues with season 8 of Dexter. It did run for 8 years. Luckily, this is not a big time commitment, because every season only has, I think, 12 episodes in it. So it's a program that's not going to take up a lot of your time. And it is available on Netflix. So Dexter, its entire run is available on Netflix right now. I don't know if it's going to stay there. Typically, when they announce new stuff, these things can get bounced around from service to service. But Dexter's been on there for many years. I know when we originally watched it, it was on Netflix as well. So it is a Showtime original. So you can, I'm sure if you have the Showtime app, you can also watch it there. But for the purposes of this review, I will be watching it off Netflix. I do also own the Blu-ray. They came out with a nice set, Blu-ray set. It's a collector series that I have as well, and that's on showcase in my theater room. But let's talk about this first episode. There's actually a lot to unpack in this first episode. We end up finding out a lot about Dexter himself and the world that he lives in. He is a blood spatter specialist. He does lots of investigations for the police department there in Miami, Florida. He is their blood expert, blood spatter expert. He also works there with his sister, Deborah Morgan. His name is Dexter Morgan. His sister is Deborah Morgan. You'll find out that he was adopted. We don't know the circumstances of his adoption, but his father was Harry Morgan, who kind of took him in as a child. We don't find out the history of what happened with his parents in this episode, but we do find out that Dexter's had kind of an interesting past. He was a child who ended up having a desire to kill things, and his father found out about his little fetish and decided to gear him towards doing things a little differently, not in an evil way, kind of a meaningful way. Understanding that his son had issues, he decided, I'm going to try to give him a moral code to live by. So what is Dexter's big secret? Well, he kills people, but he doesn't just kill anybody. You find out early in this episode that he only goes after people that are bad, other killers. He likes to rid the world of other serial killers. And that's where this show begins. They do switch back and forth between the past, the history with his father, his adopted father, and current time. And you learn about this code throughout the first episode. And there is a lot to go over in the first episode. So you find out that he kind of lives by a code. Also, it starts out with him killing an individual, and he takes a blood sample and puts it on a slide. On one of those microscope slides, he puts a dab on there. That's kind of his trophy. A lot of serial killers like to keep trophies, and that's his trophy, is a slide because of what he does. And he has a special case that he hides at home with the slides of the individuals that he has killed and disposed of their bodies. When he opens that up at the beginning of the episode and puts that slide in for the first individual that he killed, you find out that he's got at least 20 to 30 other slides already in there. So when we find Dexter in this episode, he's not new at this. He's been doing this for a while. And he loves being on the police force because he has access to other criminal investigations. You'll find out how he gets that information too in the episode. It's rather clever. You also find out that Dexter is kind of devoid of emotions. He admits he doesn't have normal emotions. And a lot of people who are serial killers and stuff like that, they just don't have a personality. They don't have feelings. And he makes it very well known in this that he doesn't have feelings and he has to fake it. And after the first, it's funny, when he first kills somebody and he's getting ready to, well, they don't show what he does. They just kind of show him starting to cut the guy's face up, basically, from the back of Dexter. And then immediately switches to him driving in a boat down the river in a nice, clean, white boat. And they go through great efforts in this episode to show a lot of white and a lot of cleanliness along with the red blood, which is very interesting. The one thing you'll find out about Dexter is he's a very clean individual. The way he murders people and the way he cleans up the crime scenes, he's very meticulous at what he does, and he's very safe. We also meet some other characters in the show, too. We find out that he's had a girlfriend. Her name is Rita Bennett. His girlfriend he's had for 6 months. And this individual was actually someone who was rescued by his sister, Deborah Morgan, in a dispute. I think it was if I'm not mistaken, it was a domestic dispute prior to them getting together. And she's damaged. She was sexually assaulted, and she's damaged. And he likes that because she has no desire for sex, and he has no desire for sex. He lets it very well known in the episode through his monologue where he talks to the camera that he has no desire to have sex. He doesn't understand the whole thing with sex in general, why people would want to perform those types of activities. So he doesn't have a desire for this. And so she fits that bill very well because she has no desire to have sex because of what happened to her. So find out later in the episode that she kind of changes her tune and it makes him very uncomfortable. But at the last minute, he is saved by one of her kids calling and needing help. So on top of that, we meet some other people on the police force. You've got Angel Batista, who is also a detective there as well. You've got a guy named James Dokes, who is also a detective. It looks like he works in the drug division. James Dokes, we'll just call him Dokes. Dokes does not like Dexter. Dexter talks about how it's funny how he works in a police department and nobody gets a sense of what he does outside of him being there. He said, with all these people who are trained, he finds it strange that nobody else finds him creepy except for Dokes. Dokes does not like Dexter, and you see that in a big way in this episode. You have the police commissioner, who is Maria LaGuerta. LaGuerta is a very interesting individual. She actually really likes Dexter in a sexual way, and he finds it very strange. The first time you see them together, he's on a crime scene, and she comes up and winks at him as he walks by, and that's when he does the monologue talking about how uncomfortable that makes him, and because he has no feelings for anybody, and especially for her. So you find out that she really does like him through this episode and kind of has a thing about going against his sister. She does not like Deborah Morgan at all. You also have the last individual that they kind of introduce and has a very small role in this first episode is Masuka. Vince Masuka is also, he's kind of a crime scene investigator, and he's there as well. And this first episode shows that there is a mass killer out there, so a mass murderer. And he's been cutting up bodies, basically. This individual cuts up bodies with no blood. This kind of shocks Dexter. When he goes to the first scene where they show the cut up body, Dexter is intrigued. He's like, how does he keep it so clean with no blood? He's doing the monologue in his head. And when he finds out that there's no blood involved, he wants nothing to do with the crime scene. So he kind of gets up and leaves. And both Masuka and Batista kind of are wondering why he wants to leave. And he's like, there's no blood. There's nothing for me to do. So he kind of leaves. In his mind, he's thinking about the killer and how amazing this killer was how amazing this killer was in being able to dispose of the body with no blood. And they found the head missing. Now, that's the first time we deal with this particular killer. Later on, they find another body, same cut up the same way as this one. And this one is completely missing the head. They cannot find the head anywhere. We then transition over to a scene where Deborah Morgan, Dexter's sister, has a theory that there's some cell crystallization in the body, and that's how they get rid of the blood, and that this is probably somebody who is in a moving vehicle doing these murders. Well, LaGuerta doesn't like this. She puts Deborah Morgan down for even coming up with this suggestion. Well, it just so happens that Dexter kills a second individual later on in the episode, and this individual that he kills, he's disposing of the body at night. All of a sudden, a freezer truck drives by him on the road. And he's like, it's kind of a weird time for a freezer truck to be out there. So he follows it onto a bridge. The freezer truck turns around, looks like it's going to head right into Dexter Morgan. Well, the lights are shining, and then all of a sudden a head lands on the windshield and the car drives off. That's when the whole team ends up there. It cuts to a scene where they're all there, and LaGuerta has to admit that, Deborah was right, and finds it strange that this head was dropped on Morgan's vehicle. And she's like, how did you even find this vehicle? He's like, well, I just happened to be out, and I thought it was an odd time, and the head, just kind of ended up there. Well, the very final scene in this episode is Dexter going home, and he notices on his fridge that there's a head with red hair, kind of touches it with a finger, and then opens the fridge, and inside the fridge is basically a Barbie that has been cut up with ribbons on it, showing that this serial killer knows that Dexter is on to him and is going to play games with Dexter. And this is how this season starts. So there's a lot to unpack in this first episode. Like, there's no time to waste. They really get in and they show you these characters. You got Deborah Morgan, you got Dexter Morgan, you got their father, Harry Morgan, you've got Angel Batista, who is a detective, you've got LaGuerta, who is the police commissioner, you've got Vince Masuka, who is another crime scene investigator, you've got Rita, who is his girlfriend, and you've got Dokes, who is the other cop in the drug division who really doesn't like Dexter. So there's quite a big cast of characters, and as these seasons go on, you'll find more characters coming in. So this first episode is setting up the stage. Each season is going to be very unique for people who haven't seen it. There's kind of a running theme for each season, and I'm actually looking forward to going back through these because it has been a long time since this show started, and I don't remember a whole lot. So it's going to be like me watching this for the first time again, and it's going to be fun. Know that going into this, that this is a very mature show. It is not meant for kids by any means. And if you're a little bit queasy and you don't care for that kind of stuff, this probably is not going to be the show for you. I'm not saying it's overly bloody. It's not, because he's a very clean individual. It's the whole concept behind this. It is very fascinating to see his journey from the first season to the last season. So let me know what you guys thought of the review. I will be doing a review each time I watch an episode, and I will be uploading these periodically for people to watch. If you have any suggestions or comments, please leave them below, and don't hesitate to subscribe and hit that notification bell. So as I put up new episodes, you'll be able to log in and you'll get alerted that those episodes are available. I'll be doing a lot more than Dexter, so this is just the beginning. I do lots of movies and TV shows, but because movies are, we're in the pandemic and there aren't a whole lot of movies being released, I figured this would be a good place to start since this was announced this week. So thanks again, and look for that next episode soon.